Okay, excellent. I did note that I wanted to bring my camera down just a little bit. Sure, that's plausibly right. Okay, hello and welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugging Along, we finished up the remaining Yule and Inn League / Ale Association parts of the Festival Buddy 2 plugin. Today we're going to take a look at the save file format. The way quick guides are saved is pretty fragile, and we can look at the rest of it while we are in there. As always, feel free to jump into the chat with your thoughts and questions. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and take a look. I'm just hanging out here in Rosenblum's neighborhood, Little Redhead's neighborhood here on Laurelin. One of the neat things about developing plugins is we can fake out a lot of the game. So the fact that the Yule Festival isn't going on right now doesn't necessarily matter. And for our purposes, we're just working with the save file for the quick guide anyway. But if I needed to act as if I had accepted a quest or completed a quest, we have the ability to fake out, to pretend as if that is happening. And so that means it's Yule anytime we want it to be. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and I guess there's not a lot of use for a cat cam if the cats aren't there, is there? We'll see if they come around later. Okay, let's go ahead and come on in to our to-do file. One of the first things in this to-do file, which is just a homegrown text file of things that I've been thinking about doing with Festival Buddy. Super easy, like the lowest bar for tracking this kind of thing. And one of the things is the quick guide progress is using an index instead of a key. What does that mean? Well, let's take a look. We're going to have to open up one of our save files. And for that, let's go ahead and make sure we have a save file. So we have Festival Buddy 2 here. And what are we looking at? Let's look at the Yule quick guide. And let's say that we've taken in the spirit of Yule from Mara Sounding Downs. Now this would be automatically detected if we actually completed it in-game, but we can also check it off manually. Okay, good job. We just took that quest from Mara Sounding Downs. And now we're going to go ahead and unload to make sure we save out that save file. I think Rose here is going to be using some Yule consumables to add to the ambiance. You know, we can really feel the cold weather here in Lindleby. And so what we want to do is we want to navigate to where that save file is. So in the standard installation, we're in Documents, Lord of the Rings Online. We're in Plugin Data, your account, and depending on the plugin, that information can be saved in a number of places. This is character-specific progress on a quick guide, so the most likely place is in the server, and then character, and then Festival Buddy settings. Let's take a look at that. And we can see the first thing in this list is quick guide quests to use. Awesome. But we can also find quick guide progress. Great. So the first index here is the festival number. And it's fine that this is stored as a number, kind of. A problem with it being stored as a number is that it means that we're tied to the order that things are shown in this window here. Let's go ahead and load this back up. The things in this window, we have Spring, Summer, Harvest Math, Yule, Anniversary, Farmer's Fair, Hobnanigans, Midsummer, Inn League Ale Association. There's a specific order to this, which is just chronological. When were these things added to Festival Buddy? It looks like Spring was the first thing, then Summer, Harvest, Math, Yule. There was probably a clump of them where they were all added together in some. That actually feels like a pretty sensible, listing. Spring, Summer, Harvest, Math, Yule. And then we have Anniversary, then we have Farmer's Fair, then we have Hobnonigans, then we have Midsummer, then we have Inn League Ale Association. The ordering of here is a little nonsensical, and Midsummer needs to be combined with Farmer's Fair. Or sorry, Summer needs to. Midsummer is fine. Summer is not. Summer needs to be combined. With Farmer's Fair. The ordering here needs to change, but the ordering here is based off of these numerical indices that we have in code that are being reflected here in the output. So anywhere in a save file where we're referring to festival number 8, well, that would break if we change the ordering of those festivals. So that's the thing we need to think about. And then within that, we say the first thing in the list of objectives is complete. But that list of objectives is malleable. We could change it up if we wanted to change how the quick guide was ordered. What we really want to say is the goal, the guide, the objective here, in the spirit of Yule pickup, that's complete. And we do not have that, we have not saved that. So that would be ideal, is instead of 1, we said in the spirit of Yule pickup. Instead of 2, we had moving them off pickup. And then it doesn't matter in which position we put this in the actual guide. Makto in chat says, hi. Hello, we are talking plugin development here for Lord of the Rings Online. So, that is a first thing we can see. And we can even make a little wish list. Wish list. So let's maybe put that in our to-dos instead. Okay, so we have quick guide progress. Indices are numerical values for festivals. This means reordering festivals would break this part. Okay? Then we have quick guide progress I. Indices are numerical values for objectives. Oh hey, we have a cat. The cat currently is very interested in fish. So the cat is sitting next to Rose, begging for fish, aren't you? And also grooming. Yeah? Does she have fish? Yeah, she does have fish. Well, we'll just, we'll leave this focused on him and we'll see. Yeah, hey. I will not deter him from the fish. Okay. So our numerical values for objectives, for an objectives ordinal in the list, this means reordering a quick guide would break this part. Okay, so just documenting all the things that can go wrong. Oh, Makto in chat says, would it be difficult to make a wide working file? Would it be difficult to make a working file for the LOTRO UI skins, which would solve avatar background for the older / not updated recently skins, if you know the problem? I think the problem you're referring to, and Little Redhead mentioned this on her stream just before mine, is that some of the LOTRO skins for the 3D avatar here in your character display, when you transition between areas, there's a glitch that causes it to shrink, or in some cases expand. And eventually either it's too small to click on, or it's so big it consumes the entire screen, depending on which direction it is growing or shrinking. So I know the problem. Unfortunately, I don't have a good enough sense of why the problem exists, just that it has something to do with a recent change in either skins or in LOTRO. And while I know the basic solution is, well, you can turn off 3D profiles, 3D portraits in order to prevent the problem from occurring, I don't have a good enough sense of why the problem is happening to know whether it is fixable in the UI skins. If it is fixable in the UI skins, I would... Yeah, okay, Agartha says there is a patch for JR skins for U38. And Makto says update 38 has sent 3D portraits to a back layer. Okay, so if there's a patch for JR skins, one of the neat things we can do is see what did they change. So let's go ahead and go over to LOTRO interface. And if we search for JRR skins, okay, we can see there's an update for the portrait patch. Awesome. And we can see the actual skins collection. So if we download both the skins collection and the patch, we can take a look and see what did they change. And do we think that is sensible, easy, all that. Okay, so let's go ahead and extract the one. Right, JR skins have so many small files. And we'll go ahead and extract the other, which I expect is going to go very fast. So what we're going to do is just do a file comparison and see what did they change. Because if what they changed is pretty easy, then yeah, it would be possible to make that work on a different skin. But that's the first thing, is I don't know what they did. So this is how I am going to go about that investigation. So as you can see, that's going to take a couple minutes to finish extracting, so I'll let it work in the background while I continue musing about different problems. So Mecto, we're not gonna forget about that. We're gonna come back to it, but we're just gonna work in the background. Okay, so that's quick guide progress. We already see 2 problems with these numerical indices. Let's just look and see what else we have. Now we can see the quick guide quest to use. This is great. These quest names are exactly what we want. It's not some indices into a table. It's the name of that quest chain, or the inner key for that quest chain. So that's good. But we can see again, we have the festival number here, where we would like instead of 9, we would like it to say Yule in all caps or something. So let's go ahead and document that as well. So indices are numerical values for festivals. We won't bother with documenting why that's bad. We already did that. All right, that's great. We have remove completed true, move icon requires first shift false, event quick slot, and X or Y visible. That's all fine. Probably. It's not obviously causing problems anyway. Okay. More X, Y visible. Great. Quick I clear delay, that's in seconds, so that's a fine for it to be a raw number like that. Awesome. So I'm not seeing anything else at this level, but as we know, you're not the window I wanted. As we know, there's 3 different places a plugin can save its data. We have character specific stuff, there's server specific stuff, and we can see here Festival Buddy. There's character data at the server level, and there's server settings. So let's go ahead and pop those open as well. And there's account-wide stuff. And we can see we have account settings, and we have image IDs. I don't even know what that is. Okay, great. So we have something open at each of the levels now that we can come back in. We're done with the character-specific settings. Let's look at the character data. Yeah. Okay, so we can see. Okay, so save file format. Cool. Character specific. Then we have server specific. Let's not hide that. We can see this is and then account specific. So that's that file. Let's go ahead and bounce back up to server all characters, and we just want to document the 2 files we might be talking about here. And I don't like this naming here. We have Festival Buddy care data, which is the character data, but we're at the account level. And I really would have liked to see server care data, or something that indicates that if you're just looking at the file, that we know that we are in the server directory, even if it's storing character data. So that's just a thing that I would think about for, the future. I'm not sure if I'm responsible for that particular file naming choice, but just thoughts. Okay, so we have downloaded some stuff. So we have two folders here. We have 35.1 and we have the patch. Now, I highly recommend a file comparison utility. I happen to use Beyond Compare. That's not required. There's plenty of them out there, but it's able to go through and just figure out what is different pretty nicely. And so we don't care about orphan files. We only care about files that exist in both places that are different. And as we can see, there's quite a lot of them. So we're going to start with some of the easier ones. Let's look at skin definition. This is universal light toolbar without an XP bar. And see what might be different. We're seeing a lot of U31.1 fixes, actually. None of those, well, player portrait. None of those seem particularly helpful. If we had the name of a skin that we knew was a problem, that would also help. Let's go ahead and collapse all these down. For instance, if green leaves was a problem. Or skin was a problem. Fantastic. Okay, so as we can see, there's a lot of possibilities here. Let's look at JR Core to start. So every one of these TGAs is an image file, and so we probably don't have to worry about that. In fact, we could probably name filters. We're going to exclude star.tga. Don't care. Okay, so we can see the only changes are in skin definition.xml and all of these different plugins. I'm sorry, some of it's underneath various cameras here. Patina Bowen says, "Hail, hello." So let's look at JRR Bree. There's universal wide clear toolbar, universal light clear toolbar, and no XP bar. Let's take a look at each of those three and see if we can see some common things at play. We can see element ID player portrait, avatar panel, cover low res, opponent portrait, and opponent panel cover low res seem to be the only things that are being changed in each of these. And in each of these cases, we have an X and a Y and a width and a height that are being tweaked. X, Y with height. I'm sorry, the line comparison is a little lower on here. All right, Casper, you're being very cute, but you're also not facing the camera, so you get banished to the not camera zone. Okay, so X, Y with height, X, Y with height, X, Y with height, now a lot of these are saying oh yeah, okay, so U33.1 becomes a U38 fix. Nice. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of X, Y with height changes in each of these, and they all seem very consistent. So let's look at something else. Let's look at green leaves. That sounds like something. Okay, skin definition. Those same four things have those same changes. X, Y, width, height. And they've all been updated with an updated comment instead of U33.1 fix, a U38.0 fix. So, my hypothesis would be if you made these same four changes in the skin of your choice, in the skin definition.xml, you're looking for element ID equals player portrait, avatar panel cover low res, opponent portrait, opponent panel cover low res. If you make that same change in the skin of your choice, you'll probably see the same effect. I'm not a skins person, but that's how my investigation process sort of leads me to a, well, that's the next thing to try, is take these four changes, these four lines, put them into their skin, load the skin, see if it helps. Someone obviously thought it would help with these skins, because these four changes are made all over the place. Let's look at Little Redhead. What's the theme that you like?
J.R.R. Delving Hills White.
Delving Hills. Okay, let's take a look at Delving Hills. There's 4 different skin definitions here. Oops. We can see it's those. Why am I not getting the right one? Control M. I did Control M. Oh well. Same for. Same for. And it looks like, I could be wrong, but it looks like the same changes in X, Y, width, and height as well. So, yeah, that's what I would do, is go ahead and make those 4 changes, Makto, in the skin of your choice. And you say for the W0 theme skins. I don't know that theme. Let's go take a look. W0. Skin. I don't know what a W0 skin is, sorry. Okay, so you have an example, element ID, player portrait equals something. So we can see they subtracted 3 from that X, they subtracted 4 from that Y, they added what looks like 7 to the width and 7 to the height. If I were to naively do that same thing, I would subtract 3, so that'd be X equals 18. I would subtract 4, that would be 17. The width, again, we're increasing it by 7, so that would be 71 and 71. I don't know if this is the right change. Obviously, you'd want to know more about what the skin is doing, maybe than just doing a blind change like this. But that's literally the change in numbers that we see in this skin. If we go to another skin, let's go to Green Leaves and open that up. Do we see those same things? We see 25 minus 3, 26 minus 4. We see 55 plus 7, 55 plus 7. So it might work, or at least it would replicate those same differences that we're seeing in other skin files. And you would just want to do that same thing for all 4 of them. Check out, what are we doing to the X and the Y, to the width and the height? Are we adding or subtracting? And just try to replicate that in each of these 4 lines. So, Makto, hopefully that investigation process makes some sort of sense. I couldn't tell you why this change is supposed to work, but apparently it does do something. You're going to check it out. Awesome. Oh, let us know how it goes. The tool I'm using, this is Beyond Compare. This is one of endless numbers of file comparison utilities. It is one that I'm particularly used to. It is available from Scooter Software. Well, I was really just trying to go to your website. Beyond Compare. Scooter Software. So if you were expecting to go to like beyondcompare.com, you won't necessarily find it there. It is scootersoftware.com. You can find Beyond Compare at. So we'll go ahead and put that into chat in case you do not have your own file comparison utility at hand. Find it very helpful. Okay. Cool. Well, we'll leave it there. And we'll get on back to figuring out what's wrong with the file format. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and look at the character data file next. And this is the server-specific character data. And we can see character I indices are numerical values for festivals, which is its own problem. All right, cooldowns. It looks like these are stored by quest name. Okay, so character cooldowns indices are localized quest names. And that's a problem because if you load up the French or the German version, your pumpkin picking suddenly will be not seen as the key it needs to be. You won't load the correct value, and you'll save the new value in a different with a different key. So let's take a look at how that works. Sure. Tokens. Yeah, tokens. So character tokens are indices are the ordinals for the current order of festival tokens. So if we change the order that they're displayed in the UI, then the values map to different things. That makes it very fragile because it means we can't reorder the UI without showing incorrect results for other characters that we don't have the data for. Okay, but that's all. That was tokens, that was cooldowns. Tokens, cooldowns. Okay. Stores tokens and cooldowns for all characters on a server. Cool. Okay, that was all of that. That's not too bad. Why am I closing these files, though, when I'm really going to need them later for testing purposes? So, server settings. We have Harvest Math Maze ID. Harvest Math is its own bundle of issues because we never did quite finish things. We got really close, and then the festival up and ended. So we're gonna have to revisit that this autumn. But we're so close to having automatic maze detection down. Very excited. That's where the maze shifts every day at like 10 a.m. So whatever the maze is right now isn't necessarily what it's going to be later. Okay, I think I am going to say no known issues. That's the best way to find a bug. Okay, and then finally the account settings. We have quick guide colors. These are probably going to be fine. These were relatively recent ads. So those are the colors. Awesome. Use color skills, whatever. Color picker window, XY. Awesome. Quest is backgrounded. Awesome. These are using quest keys. Great. Love it. Okay. For those who haven't seen it, I've added to the Festival Buddy the ability to change or to enable colors in your quick guide like this. And if you are not a color person or you don't like the colors, also going ahead and just disabling them or disabling specific ones, and using a quest picker to give you access to both some preset ones and also just a whole range of them. Perks asks, is it possible to make a plugin that tracks other people's skills? Example being Minstrel Rally. Plugins are limited for combat and skill related things based off of if you see it in your combat log. And for probably bandwidth reasons, let alone processing power, the LOTRO client tends not to put anything into the combat chat log that doesn't affect you. So we can see, for instance, Rosenblum's just applying a bunch of pile of fluffy snows on Affodil. What we could really use is her doing it on someone else. But what we can see is that all of these entries in the combat log either involve something hitting Affodil or Affodil doing something. all of our own stuff appears in the combat log, which means combat analysis tools or skill trackers and that kind of thing. If they're talking about your own skills and your own combat damage and your own combat healing, they're going to be spot on, as good as they can be, because they have access to everything that happens to you. Aphodel scored a critical hit, your mighty blow defeated, Aphodel scored a hit, etc. Sometimes you'll see other things, like the villager defeated the troublemaker. That's interesting, but it feels like, in general, you're mostly going to see things that involve you in some way. However, plugins do have access to other details about your party. For instance, one plugin that I really like is Mini Raid, and that's an alternative UI for presenting party vitality. And so a plugin can see, definitely for your fellowship and generally for the raid, that someone has gone to 0 morale. And then it can see that someone has gone to not 0 morale. So a plugin can definitely know that a resurrection was used, and it can know if you were in combat at the time that that was used. If someone's morale goes from 0 to not 0 while you're in combat, cool, someone's effect was used. And it can even know what classes are in play, so it can know whether or not there are minstrels. If there's only minstrel's the only one with an in combat res, it can know that a rally was used. And if you are targeting someone, you might be able to see if they're using something. It might help their stuff show up in your combat log. That would require a lot of testing. Let's see. Perk says, so an outside user can't see when the mini uses rally then. I can't think so. However, if you are in a collaborative environment, if you're raiding with people and you want access to that kind of information so you have a heads-up display, then it would be much more straightforward to have a plugin that your minstrels use that provides that rally button. So instead of being on a quick bar, or maybe in addition to, there's just a button on the screen, and they hit rally, and it both does rally and also sends a message to the fellowship or the raid saying, I just did rally, right? Like, Aphodel just did rally on Rosenblum. And so maybe it would have to be 2 clicks, one for the rally and one for the message. And so everyone else could have a plugin that looks for that type of message, and it could even be prefixed or whatever, and then they could do a pop-up that shows, okay, Aphodel's rally is on cooldown. And the plugin could even go ahead and say, how long is the cooldown? Because, of course, that can change based off of your traceries, legacies? Which one is it now? Traceries. So the rally for Aphodel right now in this stance is 12.5 minutes. One of my other characters, it's much, much less. And so it could send that out as well in Fellowship or Raid or whatever chat. And it's pretty straightforward for a plugin to offer like a channel selector, like where is this broadcast going to go? And so a plugin could definitely, if you click on it, say, my rally has this long left on cooldown. And other plugins could parse that information and present that in a heads-up display. But it would require everyone sort of collaborating on, oh, this is the tool we're using to make sure everyone knows when these cooldowns are available. Now, you could be a little bit more generic than that. You could have a plugin that just goes through, and for each of your skills that is on cooldown, you could package it up in some way where you can fit it in the number of characters you have, but you could just press a button, and then everyone else could have a heads-up display where maybe they pre-selected which skills they care about. Maybe they don't care so much about most of your skills, or maybe you only do it for the ones that really matter. But everyone can be like, oh, I care when the minstrel's rally is up. I care when the do not fall, the Runekeeper's version of it. Do not fall this day, something like that. I care when these things, but I don't care everything else. So you could envision a more generic plugin pairing, which lets you customize which of these cooldowns you see from other people's. Or you could just limit it and say, we really just care about the res stuff. Or other really special things. Matko says, do not follow this day. Thank you. So you could definitely make a plugin that N people in your fellowship or raid use that uses chat communication triggered by someone clicking on the plugin to tell other people what their important cooldowns are. And then the plugin can watch for that information coming in and display it in some reasonable fashion on your screen. To my knowledge, there is not a plugin like this, but that would be a workaround for knowing when important cooldowns are going. And now a plugin can make this a little bit easier. For instance, a plugin could know when a skill's cooldown has activated, a skill's cooldown that it cares about. And so it can kind of know that, you know, my broadcast is stale or not. So if one of those things changes, you could have it pop up a button in the middle of the screen saying, click me, and then you click it and then it goes away. And then it would know, okay, I broadcast my state to everyone. I don't need to broadcast again until one of these 3 cooldowns changes. And then, oh, one of those things changes, come up. And as long as all the other plugins have been loaded since you broadcast, they'll all be in sync because the cooldown of your rally skill doesn't change very frequently. Or rather, the amount of time left from a certain point doesn't change very often. Like if you get out of combat, cool, you can do a stance change, you can change your legendary items, and that would change it. Agartha says, some amazing things could happen if folks could be convinced to all run the same plugin. Someone wrote an instance finder in plugins a while back, but it never caught on because it was hard to get everyone to use the plugin. Perk says, I currently track major cooldowns based on effects on myself / party members, but obviously Rally doesn't have that. There's not zero chance that there is some sort of effect on you when you come back from Rally for a second or two, but I don't think that is the case. Anyway, yeah, so this would not be the kind of thing where you'd get necessarily a pug to coordinate on it, but if you're regularly running instances or raids with, you know, a kinship, a dedicated group of people, I think you could definitely get a small group of people to use this plugin. And a lot of plugins are kind of like that, where they start small and then enough people are like, oh, that's handy, oh, that's handy, oh, that's handy, and it grows into a wider community. So it doesn't have to be everyone, just the people that you are playing with, and if you're playing with them regularly, then that makes it more likely that you can make it happen. You know, I think a number of people in kinships that Rose and I are in probably, you know, started using Deed Tracker because they saw us using it. And Deed Tracker has a little thing where you can announce, I completed a deed, and it's fun, right? Like, it's a little, you know, I made progress in the game, and other people are like, ooh, I want to be able to send that message. Oh, I think the cat just got some fish. Did you just get some fish? Or an empty bowl that had fish in it? Yes, you did. You just cleaned that bowl. Yeah. Perk says, yeah, I just gotta convince my friend to macro his rally button to put in raid chat resed or something. Yeah, and this is where a more refined plugin could be really useful, because if the plugin just pops up a button that says click me, and then the button goes away, and it doesn't nag him every minute, it just, you know, it just pops up every time you use your rally. It just pops up to say, click me, and you click it and it goes away. That feels like a pretty low barrier for people to use. And if you never use rally, you're never going to see that thing. And yeah, you just click, and it just sends out the broadcast with a whatever. Nacto says, unfortunately, this small change adjusting X, Y, WH is not working, but I will do some more testing later on. Maybe numbers should be different. Thank you for your commitment. Well, I will say, the big thing we did was we excluded all of the TGA files. I made the assumption that none of the image file changes were necessary, but there were a lot of image files. So let's do one more look at this. And that is, we're going to go ahead and start with that. go to the patch. Okay. Yeah, so one of the big things, and we're going to go over to delving because delving hills is one that Little Red Hood uses. We're going to look at, okay, so the skin definitions, that's the only thing in each of these folders. But vitals, we can see there's a non-zero number of changes here, and we can see that they correspond to different, what do they call these? Character portraits. So we can see 10 years, 11 years, whatever. Now, if you're using something like Beyond Compare, it'll probably be able to show you what is different between the two. And we can see in the original, there's a black circle here where the profile portrait picture was, and then over here there isn't a black circle. Okay, that's interesting. Is that a pattern? Okay, black circle, no black circle. Okay, so we can see we are getting rid of a black circle in these things. Is anything else happening? Well, down here we can see the red is changes and the gray is no changes. So we can see that that black circle has been cut out. That's predominantly the only change. There are some other changes coming in here, and this is probably, I don't know for certain, but I would guess this is sort of a, saving a JPEG and then opening and resaving, opening and resaving. Like, you get minor little variations in pixels, but visibly it doesn't look very different. So I think we can just say, okay, that's probably just a little artifact. But the black circle in all of those images is going away. So that seems to be a big part of this patch, is nixing the thing here. Now, I think someone had mentioned that the 3D portrait layer had been dropped down in the the 3D portrait layer had been dropped down in the Z-axis, and so it's probably being placed underneath this black circle. I would assume then the patch is cutting that black circle out so the 3D portrait can show through. We also see opponent vitals is being updated as well as the player vitals. So that would be the next thing. Now, if we wanted to replicate that change ourselves, let's say we didn't have access to these files, what would that look like? Well, I don't know. Let's find out. Whenever I'm doing anything more than basic manipulation, I will use the GNU image manipulation program with the acronym GIMP. Or GIMP, depending on how you like to do things. Oh, the cat has left. The fishbowl must be empty. So let's open up this, and let's go ahead and open. I don't like that file browser dialog. Let's go ahead and instead open that. Okay, so we're going into Delving Hills, we're going into Vitals, and we want to go ahead and get Player Vitals Backdrop 13. That's what we're looking at. Cool. Player Vitals Backdrop 13 years. Bam. Cool. So, if I was naively trying to get rid of this, there's two things that come to mind right away. We have the Select by Color tool, where we can just go ahead and say, hey, select all the things here. Now I might turn that threshold up a little bit, but we can see it's selecting a bunch of things outside that range. Now we don't really want it to select all of that stuff. We really just want to be working in here. So there's probably other ways, better ways to do this. I'm going to go ahead and cut out that section. Stuff I care about. And then we're only working in here. So go ahead and select all the black stuff and delete. Now in that case, we missed some of the black stuff on the edge. I'm going to reduce that threshold down a little bit and see if we can't get a little bit better. It's not great. Okay, so instead of select by color, let's do a fuzzy select. No, really. Okay. It's fine. It's not really quite what I'm looking for, but it's probably fine. But another thing you can do is do a circular selection. So we can do an ellipse select. Now, drawing a circle like that can be a little bit hard, but you can also do an expand from center. Select that, click in the center, and watch it grow. And if you hold shift, you're even going to get a perfect circle. So might try something like this. Maybe make it a little bit larger. Nope. Still need to do that. Something like that. So at that point, you can delete and cut out a much nicer circle. So that would be a thing I might try, is go ahead and cut out that circle, save it out, and see what happens. I'm going to merge that down. So that's a way to cut out that black circle. I'm sure there are better ways to do it. I'm not a graphics person, but that's a way to either get a perfect circle or to just select all the black and get rid of it. As we can see, we left a little snippet here. The lasso freehand select is also nice to just draw a little circle here and cut out just a little bit more. You know, that's fine. Why not? Yeah, maybe that as well. Cool. So, yeah. If you've got the source, that is the thing you can do. I wouldn't want to do that for 40 files or 100 files per plugin, so it's quite possible you could do a little bit better. With code, you can open up each one of them and just delete the pixels in a certain range, for instance. But you know, this is the kind of change where you just pop open a video on a different screen. You just kind of do this on autopilot for an hour and then you're done. It might not be worth it to automate it. Anyway, that's what I'm seeing is the circle's been cut out. And you know, now that I look at it, there's some roughness around the edges here, and it looks like a very circular cutout. So that's what I would guess. That's what I would guess happened. Is they just did a circle in the center. They might even have the size of that thing set, so they just need to adjust its location, delete that circle of black pixels, and call it a day. So these are important changes. It's entirely possible, though, that these are the same for most plugins. So now you've got me curious. Let's go ahead and look at the vitals between Delving Hills. I'm going to go ahead and select that one, and something else like Green Leaves, and we're going to go ahead and compare that vitals. Okay, we can see, no, they've made lots of changes here. Nice. So many changes. Okay, in that case, yeah, this is a per skin change. Each skin is going to need to go through and get rid of that black circle, it looks like. Well, such is the nature of such things. Let's go look in the portrait patch. We're going to go look at Delving Hills and compare that, and go into Green Leaves and compare here. Awesome. Okay, we can see, same thing, that circle in the center has been deleted, letting a 3D portrait layer underneath it show through. Neat. And I guess that's how you would change a portrait. Fantastic. Well, thanks, Makoto, for this dive into skins. I'm not a skin person, so I've accumulated some information just sort of by osmosis from Little Redhead, who has stopped throwing stuff at me? I'm not sure. There we go. Okay, it's still throwing stuff at me. Thanks. So I've absorbed some stuff by osmosis. I've done the occasional change where I tried to change the size of the wardrobe or the map, but really I'm a skins newbie. So seeing what other people have done, like with a patch like this, is really informative. Makoto says you'll try to edit those frames that you're interested in and see how it goes. Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I would say is you can't use something like MS Paint to do this edit. I'm not sure MS Paint even understands a TGA file. It does not. So you'll want to do something a little bit bigger. Let's see if Paint 3D can do it. No, it does not like that. So we're going to go ahead and, yeah. So Paint 3D, not so much. So it looks like you're going to need, awesome, you are also using GIMP. Yeah, something a little bit more robust as a solution, and you definitely need something that supports transparencies, because if you try to save something like a PNG file in MS Paint, it'll actually tell you, which is nice, that you're going to lose all your transparencies, which is terrible. So watch out for that. Awesome. Good luck. Let me know how it goes. I'm very curious. Whoops. Don't want to close that. Okay. So, known issues there. We were going into Festival Buddy account settings. Nice. Let's go ahead and do that. Account settings. Oh, I think we actually went through all that. Nice. No known issues. Very cool. So we have two problems here. One, we need to change our code that is saving and loading the problem indices. But two, we need a function that converts the old file format to the new file format when it detects it. And we have a problem because we don't have a file format version in these files. And so what we'll want to do is, first of all, it might be good to go ahead and place a file format version in each of these 4 files. We don't need it yet for some of them. That's okay. So for server setting plugin and account setting plugins, we'll go ahead and just stamp it version 1.0. And then, so if it didn't have one, we'll stamp it 1.0. And if it does have one, then we'll be able to key on that later. Now, it might be a little early to do it for these 2 files because we're not doing anything else with them, but it might make more sense as we're in the code to go ahead and do all 4 at the same time. So we'll play that by ear as we get there. Okay. Festivals. One thing I'm noticing is that cooldowns and tokens are pretty isolated, and they might be a nice place to start. So let's take a look and see where is this file loaded in, first of all. So we can see this is specifically used in when we save the data. We save that out to, we save the character data table out to care data. Nice. You can see why it's named that. When we load it, we use the patch data load function, bring it in. But why would you do that? Okay, so pcall is a way to call a function, and if it fails, to know that it failed, which is really cool. But we can see we're doing a protected call here, using the local function get saved care data, which is saving the results of patch data load into saved care data. And if that was successful, then we load the file again and save it again into saved care data. This feels unnecessary. Now, the one thing I would say is instead of modifying the value in get saved care data, we could go ahead and return it, because pcall should allow us to return additional function parameters. The first automatic parameter that we get is a Boolean result, true or false. Did this work? But we can return extra things. I wonder if there's a good reference to that over at lua.org. pcall. So, catch any errors while the function's running. If there's no error, it returns true, plus any values returned by the call. Otherwise, it returns false. And this is a good way of capturing that. You get the status and false in the error message, true, and any values returned. Yes, okay, excellent. Neat. And Makto said in chat, thanks for pointing good direction. Well, I hope it works for you. I hope that's the only thing that needs to be changed. We'll see. Okay, so that would be the first thing, is if you're doing a protected call, it's fine, whatever. You can use that function and the lambda to go ahead and modify this local variable with patch shadow load. Just, what's the point of this branch? Okay, we're going to do just a little experiment. So we're going to go ahead and write out the contents, and it's going to be massive. It's fine. I'm going to get rid of that combat tab, though. So we're going to go ahead and write out the contents of that when we load it in. Okay, and what we get, we just get a kind of friendly printed table of stuff. That's fine. Okay, what if we get rid of that? Cool. Looks like we get basically the same thing. Now, we can tell we've done something because what if we get rid of the actual loading call? And we get an empty table. So we put that back on the load, and we can see we do get a bunch of stuff. And so what I would actually do is say, if not pcall, then do that. Probably. I might leave it as is, because this is the sort of the happy path, and then this is the error path. But we could collapse it down to just a single branch of if the pcall didn't work. I'm of two minds. Oh, sure, we'll go ahead and do it. Okay, so let's go ahead, unload. We'll reload this, and yep, we got another output there. We're going to go ahead and kill most of that output, just so it's a little bit more readable, and saved care data loaded. Great. Okay. So that brings us back to, we have a single save, we have a single load, and we have it notated in our to-do. So having just a single save and a single load gives us a little bit more isolated areas to work with. Great. Okay, so now we can see load data has some ideas of saved setting versions. Does saved image data actually get used anywhere? Saved images equals something. Alright, what's that? It is absolutely not being used. Alright, well that's a different problem. I think so. I think you missed out on all the fish. I think that's been well and truly cleaned. It's gone. Alright. You do you. Okay. So, this function, which is called load data, and is called in the load sequence, is 4 different things in one. And I'm a little concerned with that. So we have saved settings, server settings, and settings account, all up there. And we have the character stuff here. That's saved care data. And then the image IDs. Now, the image IDs thing, tend to just remove. I don't see why it's there. I'm not sure why it's there. I'm always a little hesitant to delete things if I don't fully understand why they're there. But, at the same time, it doesn't do anything. So, let's go ahead and see if we've already made this comment. Get rid of saved images. Saved image data, etc. It doesn't seem to do anything. And we would do that in a single commit so that it's easy enough to roll back if it turns out that was a wrong change. We wouldn't be losing all this information, it would just be no longer in the code. Okay. Yeah, was that like a fish good? Okay. You're just gonna sit on the floor back there? You know, we can still see you. Yeah. Florian says, might the load stuff be there because of the comma separator in the save files depending on location? I think you're saying for German and French how you use a comma instead of a period for the radix symbol. There'd be 2 questions for that. Are any decimal values saved to this file? And if they are, is it being taken into account? The double load that we were seeing here wouldn't deal with it. It would just zero out the table instead of loading it and just call it a day. Now, the full way of dealing with that, we can see that in the dtracker plugin, which I don't have here. I've got it over there. Let me see if we can find that real fast. Florian says, was just a wild guess. Why would you load twice? I'm guessing it was just a mistake. Like I don't want to throw stones or anything, but I don't think it was intentional. Yeah, Tellurian. That is true. Load once if it's okay, good. If not, try a different way. That could work, but it wasn't trying a different way. Patch data load itself and patch data save are ways to sanitize the data. There's just an extra change that needs to happen, and I'm trying to see if I can find that. But I thought dtracker had to deal with this, but it's possible dtracker doesn't save out much in the way of decimal numbers, and if that's the case, then it wouldn't be in there. But basically, there's an extra step to deal with that I'm not seeing. So we'll just deal with that later. Maybe it was in something simpler like the opaque quest tracker. I don't know. It is not in there either. Anyway, yeah, there's a way you can test based off of string formatting whether you're dealing with commas or periods, and then you can do replacements to swap them out so that they are only periods in the save file, because commas cause problems for Lua save files if you use them for the radix point, for separating the whole part of the number from the fractional part of the number. And we're going to put that on the back burner because right now I'm not seeing, well, those times for the cooldowns. Those could be a problem. But I'm not seeing a lot in the way of decimal numbers. So, interesting idea. Let's put that on the back burner. Should we do the full localization check for fractional numbers? We're only using patch data save load here. Okay, I'll make a note for that later, but that's not apparently the goal of calling it twice here. The other thing we could do is, instead of having a function, you could just call patch data load and then np call. Like, you could have an anonymous function here that calls patch data load instead of having a, well, it's still an anonymous function, but it's spelled out outside of the call. I'm fine with that being separate, though. That's fine. Okay, so we have a couple of things here. We have saved settings, we have server settings, and we have account settings. Okay, account settings, server settings, and settings. We also have character data. So the character data itself is such a big thing. It really feels like we should start breaking this out into functions. So function load character settings. Load settings file character. I want, oops, let's go ahead and do modern conventions here. Load settings file server and load settings file account. And then if we just call all of those, load settings file character, load settings file server, load settings file account, and we can move these on over. Okay, so character. Now we have a local saved settings, but we are merging that in to the default, and then we're toggling show screen on. Perfect. In fact, settings.show screen probably is the wrong place for that, but it's there. It's fine. Save server settings. Merge default into table. Great. And load settings file. Cool, we can see already we're doing some updates here. So, if settings.version equals nil, then settings.version equals v1.0. Really, this is arbitrary. We just need something recognizable. And in fact, let's not call it version, let's call it file version. And we want to go ahead and add those to each of these, just as a let's get that going. And if we go ahead and reload this, we should be able to see that in play. I had the thing open. Why did I close it? This is very silly. Okay, so we've loaded it with the new code. So now when we unload it, we should get to see those version files. Let's go ahead and reorder things. Alright, well, I'm not seeing it. So, let's assume I did something wrong. File version. Oh, hey, file version. I do need to actually put it in the right place. Yes. So, if setting is that, we're in settings server now. So we need to be that. Settings account. But we can see there's some settings changes here that we want to go ahead and make sure these are in the right place. Great. Populate a global variable. Now, the fact that we're populating this global variable really suggests maybe we shouldn't be doing that, but that's a change for later day. Updating this, and why are we setting that to false? Fascinating. Fascinating. This was code that was brought over from, let's say, dtracker, that had the ability to say, oh, you need to hold shift in order to move this icon down here. Just click and dragging it isn't enough. Some people don't have as good motor control over the mouse hand, or maybe aren't even using a mouse, and so having that extra layer of control so they don't just click and drag something, just like locking your bar so you don't drag things off of it. Speaking of which, so that's an option that was there, and so this code was referencing it, but this plugin doesn't have that in its options menu. But no reason to delete working code, you just have to incorporate that. And wouldn't it be nice if we had documented it? Currently, Festival Buddy 2 doesn't provide an option for the user to modify this setting, but the code in minimized icon expects it to be there. Change this to true if you want. If you want to have to hold shift to move the minimize icon. Okay, so at least we have documentation, so we don't have to kind of rediscover what this is for later. Alright, so we have settings, we have settings server, we have settings account. Awesome. And we can actually tell if this is working by unloading and reloading. Great. So let's take a look. We see version 1.0. We see version 1.0. We see version 1.0. Now we already have identified a problem, is that we can't tell the difference between these have been put here correctly and they all just happen to be the same version and the same key versus we made a mistake. So we're going to go ahead and actually delete those 3 file versions and do this a little bit more forward thinking. So this is instead of settings, instead of file version, it'll be settings file version. Maybe just a settings version. It'll be settings server version, and it'll be settings account version. It'd be a lot more obvious that we've matched them up correctly this way. Okay, we've loaded it, we've unloaded it. Coming on in, we see settings version, we see server settings version, we see settings account, settings server, and settings. But the file's named server settings and account settings. I assume in code it's fine. Settings account, settings server. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we have a file-specific version that we can now key off of. Great. Now that we can do that, we can start making changes. So, one of the ones we wanted to look at, care data, the final one. So, let's go ahead and say function load. And it's called care data, but server-wide character data. Because we want this function to guide us to what the point of this is. So, load server-wide character data. And that's going to be all of that. Awesome. Okay, and then finally, and I think this function is going to be deleted very soon, load saved image data. Great, function, do that, and okay. So that makes our load data function a lot more understandable. We can look at this and we can say, okay, we understand in principle what it's supposed to be doing. Load the settings at each of the 3 levels, load server-wide character data, load saved image data. Why not? And done. And it makes each individual chunk of this a little bit easier to understand. We hope. Okay, that being said, saved image data, don't care. And we're going to be playing around with server-wide character data. We want to go ahead and add a version to here as well. Now, we already have stuff in here. So what we want to do is start versioning stuff off. So after we've loaded it, we're going to do if settings account blah 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 equals nil. But oh, this is wrong. So we want saved care data. If saved care data dot settings account saved care data. Sure, we'll just do that. Again, I don't like the name, but it's fine. So if we don't have a version, then we're doing 1. If saved care data equals 1, No, if it doesn't have a number. So we're actually going to call this, if it doesn't have one, then it's going to be 0. And then if saved char data version equals version 1.0, then we're going to go ahead and do some of this stuff. And 1.0 to 1.1 update. But in order to have that be an end, we need to go ahead and okay, there we go. So let's indent this and check out what we've done. Okay, so if it was 1.1, check the saved settings, make sure it's still compatible with newer updates, add in any missing default settings. Cool. So we have table, update old format to new format for player name festivals and pairs. Fascinating. So we had Spring, Harvest Math, and Yule, and we were copying them into 1, 3, and 4. That's so frustrating. Because that's kind of what we want. We need to go back to those strings, but not English specific, just internal key stuff. But that was probably the goal of this was, if you were loading up in German or French, you didn't have a Spring or a Harvest Math, you had something else. So what we really need is to go back to like Spring internal key stuff. Okay, and then ID data category, tokens. We're doing something there. Okay. That's fine. Remove any session play characters. Yeah. Where else do we deal with a tilde? Why would it prevent new session plays from persisting? I mean, it would persist once. I guess if you log off the session play and come back and it loads it, it would wipe. Okay, yeah. I mean, it doesn't prevent it from persisting, but it effectively does. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so what other changes should we be locking behind versioning? Well, we see a bunch of these settings thing. Setting show screen equals true, that's fine. Populated global variable, that's fine. Okay. If this equals that, equals version 1, then end. What did I call it down here? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move some of the stuff in here. That's obsolete. No longer saving that. Great. Okay. That's fine. So now we're ready. You know what? There's a lot of changes already. We should probably take a look at our source control and maybe even commit some of these changes. Okay, so in main, we've gone ahead and taken the load data function and split it out into several other functions. But that's really about it. So that's good news. Okay. Divided load data function into 5 sub-functions. Also, remove redundant loading of whatever that was. There we go. Now, ideally, that would have been its own commit, but all right. If it's ideal, we should probably do it. So I'm going to save off these little comments here. I don't want to have to type them again. And then we're going to go ahead and bring main over. Let's go ahead and make sure that's unloaded. It is. Great. So we're going to go ahead and undo those, but then save it over here. Actually, we need the minor changes as well. So I'm saving all the changes that I did make. Beyond compare will keep them for me, but I've got them copied over to another buffer just in case. And we can come on in and we can do that sole fix, which was this thing right here. We want to make if not that, then we load it with errors. Okay, that's its own little change here. So removed, gotta spell that right, redundant loading of save care data. And we can see that happening here. Instead of recalling that, we say if not that. Okay, we got our to-do file changes. Awesome. And then we want to go ahead and bring back all those changes we did. Okay, so what does that look like? Load data, again, is being split up. We're consolidating the changes to settings stuff. We've got our version. These things got moved. Awesome. We got our version. We've got our version. And then this is all white space changes. So we can go ahead and exclude that. More version and surrounded by function. And then there's our function. Great. So pretty minimal changes. So let's go ahead and make that commit, where we divided load data function into 5 sub-functions. Great. Okay, so that gets us prepared to handle file migrations a little bit more gracefully. Now, one thing we could do is sort of a more modern convention is that function names like this, global variables, should be uppercase. You know what? That's easy enough to fix here, because I bet these are the only 2 places we deal with it. Load data. Load data. Anywhere else where this happens? Saved image data. Oh, that's funny. How do we specify the type? This is Emilua, I think. Specify return type of function at call point. Well, I'm going to have to look into that later, because patch.load can return multiple things. Oh, can it? That's an interesting question. Results. We're calling load. Okay, plug in load. Let's go take a look. Return object. It's definitely a table, right? We always get a table from plugin data if there's anything. And in fact, look at it. Won't you get a table even if the file doesn't exist? Let's find out. So if we do a local value equals patch data load turbine.data scope.character test turbine.shell.writeLine value, and we're going to go ahead and wrap that up and spit it out. Okay, let's go ahead and load this. Value is nil. Awesome. And then I had a different problem. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Let's take a look at car data. Okay, player name festivals. Q18. Sure. Tell me more about this. Festivals table version 1.0. Oh. Oh, we're assuming all of care data is festivals. Oh, that's easy enough. Okay, and we're getting that because we just added, or just tried to add, the version. Okay. Saved care data version. We've just put it into saved care data. Care data is coming on over here. In pairs of this. Great. We'll get a little bit more detailed output here. Okay. Saved care data version. Festivals table. Yeah. So we need to ignore that. Now, unfortunately, Lua doesn't really have what I would call a continue. But we can say if player name does not equal saved care data, then, so we can go ahead and just wrap all of that up. And of course, we can't use the exclamation point for not equal. That's not Lua. There we go. And then we can see that saved care data version appearing in the save file. Now, this strikes us as one workaround. The other one, we could nest the characters in a table. That we could actually have a characters entry under which we actually expect all of the things to be characters. Slightly bigger change than what I want to make right now, but the fact that we have to have a special thing that says, okay, this thing is only characters except for this is bugging me a little bit. So char data. Okay. Adding the version at root showed an issue. The loading code assumes everything is a character, which meant the version entry broke the code. Okay, on the other hand, we did find out that if you load a file that's not there, you do get nil. Awesome. So when we go to patch data load, that's calling turbine and plugin data load. And this isn't going to be an object. It's going to be a table or nil, I think. So if I were to go ahead and do that and say we're going to get back table or nil, oh, that's interesting. Let's come on back and take a look at this. It just turtles all the way down, isn't it? Okay, I will stop playing around with that. So basically, patch data load here, we think we can get anything from it. We really know that we're getting a table or nil. And I don't know how to kind of coerce that in the way that we want, except we could do like a function coerce load, right, that takes a scope and a name, and we could actually do this. Right, local value equals patch data load return value, and we could say that we're going to go ahead and return a table or nil, and then we'll get a single point here, but then we could call coerce load instead, and what would we get then? Can I convert its type to table? No. Okay. Well, we could even say if value equals nil, then value equals table end. And at that point, we would just be returning a table. And at that point, say image data would be like, cool, you said it was a table, this function only returns tables. It's a lot more work than I want to do right now, because we practically know that we're only getting a table or nil. We're checking for nil somewhere. So good enough. We're gonna leave that. Oh, that was saved character. What's this? Saved image out. Okay. Okay. So we are version 1.1. If this equals version 1.1, version 1.1 covers anything before 2024, 01, 09. Version cool. Version 1.2 introduced and plugin version 2.0.5. And we're going to do the same thing at the end here, where we update the saved version to 1.2, and we just added at the end here 1.1 to 1.2 update. Now, it would definitely be possible to kind of try to synchronize our file versions to our plugin versions or our game versions or something, but that way kind of lies madness, because these tend not to go in step with each other. And ideally, our file format versions change much less frequently than our plugin version. Okay, so in here, we want to take a look at, what was the first thing we said? We want to take a look at tokens? Maybe cooldowns. Okay. Change cooldowns keys from localized quest names to quest keys. Okay, so that's going to be, well, instead of tokens, we're going to be doing some of that. And again, iterating through, having to check for that version every time we do this. Is that going to bother me? Where all do we use care data? Probably everywhere. 25, yeah. Where all do we iterate through care data? I guess that's a different question. Oh, we iterate, yeah. Okay. So we're assuming, yeah, I didn't even notice that, but we probably have our version in here. Oh, not there. Alts. Yeah, look at that. Saved care data version is in our alts window because of course it is. Oof. I chose the hard file to start with. I thought I was choosing the easy one. Another one, okay. Another time. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and address this because we can't have this mismatch of what's going on and need to check it everywhere. That way lies insanity. We can do it once in the main function here. So let's ignore some of these functions. Cool. Oh, that's great. Okay, so Yeah, we can do the check here. That's fine. No, it's not. Is it? We're only going to have that if we're about to do the update. Let's make this easier on ourselves. If that equals nil, let's move that down. And then version 1.1. Okay, so this will be 1.0 to 1.1. Awesome. Okay, so if this doesn't exist, then do these things. We do not need to worry about checking saved data version here. Get rid of one of those. Outdent. Okay. And then the first thing we do in this update is we're going to go ahead and fix the problem. So first thing we're going to do is probably nest characters under new tab so that we can iterate through a table and only find characters. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is probably to set that to nil so that we... It's still going to be there though, isn't it? Now we'll just iterate through. It's fine. So, for that end, if player name does not equal this thing, then we want to go ahead and say saved care data version, or saved care data dot characters. Yeah. It's tempting to just call it chars. I mean, that could save literal characters every time we do this. Yeah, sure. Equals, we're going to set that equal to a new table. And then saved character dot chars player name equals festivals table, and car data. Oh, we're in car data. Interesting. Oh, that could be a problem, couldn't it? The saving to the global variable is... Oh, yeah, we want to do that last. So account settings. Okay, so that was the file account. Here, we want to go ahead and move that on down. So we're doing server settings and character but we can see that all over the place. Okay. Settings. Okay, move that on down here. Oh no, we do need that call to merge default. I'm not happy with that at all. Okay, load settings functions. Let's go ahead and make a note. Load settings. The we need to separate the act of merging defaults and rooted values. Hang on a sec. Do I? Okay. Settings equals we're merging the defaults and this thing. This is so much simpler than the character data. I'm not sure it's going to be a concern until it becomes a concern. Okay, so load this saved data, this thing here where we're doing the deep copy, that's what I'm concerned about. We're definitely intentionally doing stuff with nil that maybe we shouldn't do. What does the deep copy do? What's copy do? Alright, well, we haven't broken anything too bad. That's good. Okay. Yeesh. So we have this local table. We're loading the local table. We are using the local table. And then eventually we go ahead and clone that local table into the global character data. Okay, good enough. So we set the chars table to a new variable into a new table. We go ahead and start copying things over, and then saved char data player name equals nil. Clear that out. that's a possibility. And then each place where we look at care data, we need to look at cares instead. So, cares. Cares, get out of cares, get out of cares, get out of cares. Okay, that's every reference to care data that has been updated. Let's see how that works. We're going to load. It didn't work. Indexing no field. Of course, we didn't actually save all these things that we just did. Let's try it again. Load. Great. Unload. Also great. Let's come on in. We can see we're saying we're version 1.1. Excellent. And we can also see that while the entry did get duplicated, we still have the original entry, and that's a problem. So I've gone ahead and manually reverted that file in. So we wanted to have the entry for that player name and save card data to be set to nil. And that did not happen. So turbine.shell.writeLine before setting to nil. And we're going to go ahead and dump out saved character player name. And then we'll do an after. Cool. After it's set to nil, oh hey, general stack overflow. That's fun. Did it do that before? Why is festival functions having a problem? Check character data. Cool. Where is this coming from? After load data. getting not good stuff here. Why is that? What did I do? What did I do? Oh, my phone is telling me it was later than I thought. Okay. Something's going on here. So, we're going to go ahead and copy that off for a minute, and then come on into all characters, char data, or just, blow that away. Doesn't matter. And try this again. Okay. Attempt to index locals. Here, char data, and no value. That's main 192. Different error messages are great. So we can trigger different parts of the code that are misbehaving. 192. Okay, so we didn't do a nil check here. So we did a patch data load here. Awesome. So if saved char data equals nil, then saved char data equals new table. End. Let's check that out. Okay, so we're back to the 127. Great. But why? Festival functions 127, that is the check char data, which we should get to after here. Of course, if we're making it new, then we do need saved char data dot cars equals a new table as well. What do you mean? Index field cars nil value. Okay, we're definitely done in load data before we get there. Something is missing in my understanding of what's going on here. Okay, so $41. That's the new stuff. Making new cars. Cool, cars exist. Making new cars. Saved car doesn't have it, and Carta doesn't have it. Okay. Oh, telephone, why are you doing bad things? Okay, so obviously my understanding of what saved car, what this is doing, making new cars. I feel like I'm missing something really obvious here. So, making new cars. Yeah, we don't need that in there right now. Okay, so making new cars. So we have this here. We dump out saved character data. It's not there. We dump it out again. It is there. Great. What's getting moved here? Oh, that's funny. Cars itself would be in the table also. And player name does not equal cars. I was missing something obvious. Fantastic. So what we want to do is never make that mistake again. We're going to come on in here and replace this file with the saved version that we had, which was version 1 with just Affidel. We're going to come on in here and do a load and unload, and we're going to see that under cares we now have an Affidel. Okay, so the problem was a self-referential one. We were not excluding character entries, so we had copied Affidel underneath here, and characters itself might have been copied as well for a recursiveness, but it was the deleting of characters that was causing us problems. So we made it, then we deleted it, and nothing good came of that. Fantastic. Something so obvious. So we're going to get rid of some of these debug statements. Fantastic. So we can go to alts, no alt data, perfect. Little things like that. That's why just writing debug statements to check your assumptions about program state can be so useful, because we could see that it was disappearing between one line and the next, and that really helped us to eventually figure out what the problem was. Now, we have, in version 1.1, all of our characters are underneath something called character arrays. So we can iterate freely underneath chars to get our, to get each character that we have information for, and outside of characters, we cannot iterate through it anymore. So we are good to proceed with other things. But that means that for the rest of this, we're going to have to deal with that new structure. So we can now say, for player name at festival tables in saved character data cars do end, and actively be iterating through things correctly. Now we've got multiple issues here. We've got the indices for here, 1, 3, 2, 5. These are really nice because you can just iterate through numerically and be kind of assured of getting them all, but we we need to fix that in the long run. Cooldowns, though, that was definitely a thing I had an interest in. We've run out of time tonight, so I'm going to poke around at the code just to get a sense of what the problems are here. But let's go ahead and bring this stream to a close in the near future. So if you have any last minute questions, comments, concerns, now's a great time to get them into chat. While I am poking around at this cooldowns thing, we're going to go ahead and search just for matching case and matching whole words. That's our note there. Okay, so we have keys in Rel Festival table. I don't think that's us. Table, check festival data. All right. Yeah, we're definitely looking at client line here. So, check current will need to be updated to stop using client lang. Okay. And then the main window, select festival, cooldowns, cares, yeah, debuff name. Okay. Refresh debuff view could maybe use b.key instead of debuff key. Debuff name. Sorry, b.name. Yakunu says, I do have a question. Is it possible to somehow reduce the amount of keybinds for active combat gameplay? Being constantly in fights with enemies while pressing shift plus control keybinds is just uncomfortable. I can understand that. Plugins can change how you visualize your different skills. So if you were a Guardian, for instance, you could have a plugin that shows you your sort of your tier 1 things that are available without a parry or a block response. And then if you get a parry or block response, just show those things. But unfortunately, plugins in general don't let you activate skills with keyboard controls. You can interact with plugins using keyboard shortcuts, kind of, but you still can't activate a skill shortcut in that way. So if your goal is to stay on the keyboard and not go to the mouse, then plugins don't have a lot of flexibility. One of the early design decisions for Lord of the Rings Online's plugins was definitely to lean away from botability or automatability and allow people to make plugins to do interesting things without necessarily letting those plugins kind of play the game for you. As a counterexample, World of Warcraft 15 or 20 years ago, whenever it was I was poking at that with some college friends, one of them was very much into plugins, and they were making an auction house plugin, and the auction house was very scriptable. So you can have a plugin that just that automatically pages through the auction house, grabbing all the information from everything that was in the auction house, and building up giant tables for minimum prices that it was seeing, maximum prices it's seen, average prices that it's seen. So if you're trying to corner the market on wool cloth or something, silk cloth maybe, you could just have it go through, scan it all in, and be like, okay, this is a good price on the market right now, this is a bad price. Go ahead and automatically list 500 stacks of it, 20 a piece in the auction house at such and such price, and the add-on could go ahead and automate all of that, which feels a little on the bot end of things. Like, yeah, you told it to go do a thing, but then it went and did 500 things. You could go ahead and just tell it to buy out all of the auctions for silk cloth that are below X per item, and it would go ahead and do that. And that might be one item, or it might be 100 items. And so the people who did the plugins for Lord of the Rings Online tended towards, if you're interacting with the game, the user has to click on your plugin to make meaningful things happen. And so that means plugins can definitely present skills differently, but to use this skill, you have to click the button. And so that's not necessarily good from an RSI standpoint, but you can have different visualizations of your skills that mean maybe, not having to move your mouse so much, clicking but not doing things like chords where you're doing Control and Shift and pressing 7. Let's see. Agarthar says, even without a plugin, you can make extra quick slots visible and use those for your skills. Telerian says you might change your key bindings to use other keys. Instead of Shift 1, you could set it to A. The Kuno says, it's not about the extra quick slots, there's just too many buttons to press. I'm curious what class you are playing. For instance, you're looking at the stream's buy-ins and it's filled to the brim with buttons. Oh, you mean mine? Yeah, well, so for one thing, a lot of these aren't active combat stuff. You'll notice that up at the top here, this is stances. I don't change very often. These are tracking things. These are cosmetic pets. These are just mounts to toggle back and forth. And these are consumables to use occasionally, but usually not during combat. Okay. You've tried Champion and Lore Keeper. You're worried about risk of repetitive strain injury. Absolutely. So one thing that I have found has really helped is a mouse that may not be available to everyone just because it's a little bit of an extra expense, but I'm using a Logitech mouse that has a kind of its own little keypad on the side. So you get your 1 through 0 and then the 2 extra ones, your braces or whatever, depending on your keyboard layout. And so you can activate any of those skills 1 through 12 with your thumb. But the mouse also contains a 4th button over here, which acts like a control button. So with my hand, I can be either activating control with my left hand and then whatever on my right, or if I'm feeling comfortable with doing it, I can use my 4th finger over here to activate the control, and then I'm using my thumb to select 1 through 12. And so it definitely took a while getting used to feeling comfortable finding the right buttons, but I find that because I can be hitting Control, Shift, or Alt with my left hand and 1 through 12 with my thumb, it's very different. That being said, your mileage may vary. My hands are big enough where I can be hitting Control with sort of the palm of my hand on my left side, and I can use my left hand for 1 through 6 and my right hand for 7 through 12 with a little bit of wiggling. Alt and Shift are definitely harder to do that though, but definitely with Control you should if your hands are kind of sized for your keyboard, 1 through 12 and Control 1 through 12 should be almost identical, with just the palm of your hand just hitting that Control button if you're two-handing your keyboard. You've said you know of them. You've tried looking for any extra button mice that's also vertical, but you haven't had any luck. It sounds like you're talking about a mouse that is more like this and less like that. Yeah, this is a very specific mouse, and I haven't seen too many of them with this number of extra key buttons on them. I would say most classes that I've seen the skills that you're using regularly in combat aren't all of your skills. And the minstrel here is an example. So this improved Song of Distraction, can't use it in combat. Invocation of Elbreth, it's a fear effect. I can use it once every 30 seconds, but generally once combat's begun and things are getting hit all over the place, damage breaks the fear, so it doesn't get used. It's a pre-combat thing or very specifically in combat thing, so it's in a very particular place so I can hit it. You know, I've got reses in a specific spot so I can access them, but I'm not accessing them regularly, I hope, in combat. Really, I have two clusters of things. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So there's two clusters of things that I try to make use of to reduce the effort of getting to them. So what on earth? So speaking of mice misbehaving, for me, I find the left-hand side of the numerical keyboard, because I'm usually doing a mouse in the right hand and a keyboard in the left hand. So it's really easy for me to hit 1 through about 5 or 6 with my fingers. So everything over here is pretty easy, well, especially down here. 1 through 6 is very easy to activate. But like I already said, control is really easy for me to hit with the palm of my hand and still hit 1 through 6 with my fingers without any extra effort. Now I have a mouse where the 4th finger also activates control, so I have a little extra fluidity there. Let's go ahead and draw that one. So these 12 keys right here, I consider this is where the really important stuff, the stuff that I'm using all the time in combat, the stuff that is super important to use in a combative sense. Now, for the minstrel, actually, the important stuff actually extends over here to all the way to 8, which is where this mouse that gives me access to those higher numbers easily comes in handy. But Cry of the Wizards has a longer cooldown, it's a 30-second cooldown. Call of the Second Age has a 30-second cooldown. So they're, again, not all of the time. So the main focus for those things with a shorter cooldown period, or I'm trying to activate all the time, those are over here on the left. Now, if I'm throwing Alt into the mix, I can still reach 1 through 5, 1 through 6 pretty well by tucking my thumb under and hitting Alt. So that's the next row. Now, maybe I don't have quite as good of a range, so that's the next row, and I try to get things, you know, maybe not quite so far, but Alt 1 through 5, cool. And then the shift stuff, you know, if you're tucking your pinky in, then that makes it harder to use your pinky on 1 or 2, but it means that you still have access to a couple of these over here. And so that's sort of the diagram of ease of access for a one-handed operation on the keyboard for my hands and my keyboard. I can access, you know, the 1 through 6 stuff and control 1 through 6 stuff pretty much identically. Alt stuff, I have constrained motion because I've got to keep that thumb close to that Alt button. And then shift, because the pinky's using is hitting that shift, I kind of don't have access to shift 1 and shift 2 as easily. Like I can do it, but you know, excluding that 4th finger, then I'm still doing a pinky in 3rd or 2nd. So that's what's going on here, and so that's why you see the shape of the combat stuff happening. Now, as a minstrel, you would think my healing stuff would be more active, but I love doing damage minstrel, so all the damage stuff is down here, and then the healing stuff is up here on top. Everything else on here is less important. It's not important, but you know, the cleansing and the freedom of movement stuff, just from like 20 years of history, it's always over here, so it just always is over there. Those are really easy to hit with this mouse with extra buttons. But even so, it's pretty easy to hit the buttons on the end of the number line. So the numbers after 0, bracket, or minus, equals, whatever your keyboard layout has them. Traditionally, I put sort of the oh no buttons there, like healing potions, mana potions, because they're so easy to hit compared to buttons in the middle of the row. So my healing potions go there. My freedom of movement, my cleansing go above it on the control row, and then above that are the reses. Your mileage may vary, of course. I know some people, their hands proportionally are a little bit smaller for the keyboard that they have, and so they don't have quite that range of reach. And obviously you want to make it work for you. So that's why the stream's binds look so crazy. Everything else that's not circled here, with maybe the exception of this stuff, that has situational use in combat. But everything up here in the purple zone, I would say, none of this is combat related, or none of this is stuff I need to hit in a hurry in combat. It's all down here on the base row and the Control, Alt, and Shift rows. The Kuano says, I can only reach up to 1 to 4, F1 to F4 yourself. Beyond that, it starts being uncomfortable. According to that, the constant WASD movement to evade things. Little Redhead says, did B4 mention my keyboard changes? He finds it wacky. Instead of WASD, Little Redhead uses ESD F1 key over. That's a nice point, is if you find yourself underutilizing the left part of your hand because you're up against your tab, your cap locks and whatnot, WASD is not a thing that you have to do. Now, for many of us, muscle memory is going to fight against you, and changing to shift over is going to be a painful process. But you can shift over closer to the center of the keyboard, which means you can reach upper left and upper right. It's not for everyone, it's not for me, but it is available. Yeah, if you say you can only reach 1 to 4 easily, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, Alt, Shift. Yeah, I in that case, I would definitely find myself wanting to use more of the vertical stack over here. And one of the things about this game that I really like is it's very configurable. So if you want to shift all of your keyboard shortcuts, like if Shift 7, 8, 9, whatever over here, if you wanted to, you could move them into a vertical stack, but you can also bind these in different ways. You can do corded stuff, like for instance, to pull out this donkey, I can hit Control Shift 3. Maybe that's not a very useful chord, but hitting Control and Shift with the palm of your hand is almost the same as hitting Control with the palm of your hand. So it might be that doing some minimal chorded stuff to get you more in the 1 to 4 stack could be useful as well. I don't know. So unfortunately, the answer is plugins aren't going to be the solution here. There might be other features in Windows that allow you to do something here, or you might take advantage of the key binding to give yourself more key binding options dealing with keys 1 through 4, maybe 1 through 5 if you're stretching. You could also check and see, like, maybe a smaller keyboard would be nice. This standard size keyboard is kind of based on the assumption that your hands are a certain size and have a certain range of mobility. And if your hands are either smaller or larger, or if they don't have quite the same level of mobility, maybe you can't stretch your fingers as wide, maybe you can, but it hurts to do that, or you're concerned about repetitive stress. Keyboards are available in different sizes, and you might find that a keyboard that is smaller together, and this is really just an option if you're playing on a desktop. If you're playing on a laptop, it's harder to swap out the keyboard. But if you're on a desktop, okay, you said you already got a pretty small keyboard to fit your small desk. Excellent. Because that is an option if you have the money, and if you can find a model that works for you, is shrink down the keyboard so that the same relative motion gets you further distance. Yeah, that's really all I've got on that. Unfortunately, accessibility and making your input devices work for you is such a big topic that it's really hard to have a one size fits all on that. All right, for those who are curious, where is that? I was going to go ahead and pull up that model mouse just for anyone who is curious about getting those extra buttons, but then I have to find the order form. Why is my phone deciding to make noise? Okay, I think I have found nothing. Why is it not showing up? What are you? Okay, I have found it. Alright, so Logitech G600. So this is a Logitech G600. Your website of choice for such commerce will probably have it, and this is what it looks like when you're not just showing it up to a webcam. So you've got buttons. They are labeled G9 through G20, but by default for me, they just map to numbers 1 through 12. So they're just another way to access that 1 through 12 row. And then on the right side of the button, there is beyond buttons 1 and 3, there's a button 4 here, and by default, it just is Shift. No, Control. It is just Control, and that helps me get the first and the second rows. And with that, that's actually very handy for a couple of reasons, because you can steer yourself around with just a mouse. Just by default, click and hold mouse buttons 1 and 3, and you just run in that direction. So it's very possible for me to, if I'm eating a slice of pizza or something, and my hand, one hand is messy, I can both pilot myself around, and I can, select rows and use that a keybind on my wheel to maybe follow her. Let's see. Looks like I pressed down on the wheel to do a slash follow. But also I can do all the combat stuff. So I can do 1 to 8 or control versions of those. And, so I've got my eating hand and my combat hand. Yeah, another thing to point out is that a lot of stuff on the right here is just emotes, right? Like 9, 0, and bracket are just ways of doing emotes. Because I hit those all the time, and it's super easy with my mouse, but you can also do it with a keyboard. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it. This is not a particularly cheap mouse in the grand scheme of things. Maybe it is, but compared to a month subscription of LOTRO, much more expensive. But I do find this very handy to have. Interesting question. Thanks for bringing it up. I know accessibility is going to be more and more important to those of us who are in this game or whatever game and are gradually growing older and suffering entropy. So it's great to think about these things. I wish, sometimes wish that plugins did have that ability to let you activate skills with keyboard shortcuts. But I am very aware of just how automatable games can be when plugins can do that. When if your plugin could activate skills on your behalf, you could set up sequence bars or something like that, and just press a key on your keyboard, X X X X X, and it could just do everything. It could cycle through all of the skills in the order that you want, and it could key off of what are you targeting on and all these things. And so, definitely on the side of not just allowing the game to be automatable through plugins, but also not allowing the game to be as accessible as it could be for those people who need the accessibility. And I'm not sure how you address the one without the other. Like, making it more accessible for those people who need accessibility is awesome, but I'm not sure how they solve that problem. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, you say it's saddening. You can't play action online games because they're too fast, and you can't play classic games either because of the amount of constant inputs. Perks suggests a macro. There are extra game abilities to have your operating system send inputs to a window that are perhaps less traditional. They may or may not be brushing up against the edges of what is allowed in your terms of service, so consult your friendly expert on that. Okay. Well, thanks for a really interesting prompt. Sorry we don't have a good answer for you from the plugin side of things. Agartha says, third-party software tools are technically not allowed. Well, Windows operating system, it would technically be a third-party software tool that lets me interact with the game, so, I'm going to keep using Windows and LOTRO, and they're just going to have to deal with that. Agartha says, yes, it's very selectively enforced. Yeah. Okay. It does raise the question of what a second-party software is. One would assume a first-party software would be LOTRO itself. So what's a second-party? And that would be presumably software that I have written. And then third-party would be software that neither SSG nor I have written. Maybe. Might want to check your terms of services for definitions of those as well. All right. Well, this has been delightful. Thank you very much for some very interesting questions. I'm glad we were able to make a little progress delving into what's going on with these save files here and how we're going to make them better. I'm always a little nervous when working with save file formats because, it's the whole if it's not broke, don't fix it thing. But they're definitely bent if not broke. And I hate the idea of data loss. I don't want people to just, update their plugin and then all of their stuff is gone. Unfortunately, with Festival Buddy, it's a pretty low stakes scenario, but I still don't like the idea of them just like, hey, nothing's working. So updating file version code, we want it to be as robust as possible. We want it to be as reliable as possible. Okay, neat. Well, with that being said, that's everything we are going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I hope to see you all here next week, and until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.